Oh, hey, welcome back. It's sequel time. That's right, here we are, Season 2 of the Reaction Shot podcast. The way I see it, someone's out to make a sequel. You know, cash in on all the movie reviewing hoopla. So it's my job to observe the rules of the sequel. Number 1, the guest hosts are always much more prominent. Number 2, the episodes are always bigger and more elaborate. More information, more laughs, ear candy. Your core audience just expects it. And number 3, if you want this podcast to become a big success, never ever stop listening, liking, and sharing. It could be a hit and lead to more entries in the franchise. I am so happy to kick off this new season with you, the listeners. So much has happened since season 1, and I couldn't be happier. One of the biggest things to make note of is I'm now officially a part of the You Run Podcast Network, a network jam-packed with some amazing creators with a wide range of podcast topics. So hop on over to the You Run Podcast webpage, that's yourunpodcast.com, and check out all the other amazing talents featured. There's one in particular I'd like to point out, and that's the Aardvark and Friends do Red Dwarf. Look, I'll be honest and say I have no idea what Red Dwarf was, but after listening to this podcast, I sure do now. Listen as we are taken through all 12 seasons of the 1988 British science fiction sitcom, episode by episode. The podcast has some great conversations with the host, as well as an offering of knowledge on the show for both the fans and the newbies. So, check out the Aardvark and Friends Do Red Dwarf podcast, found on the You Run Podcast Network page, or wherever you listen to your podcast. So, now, let's get into Season 2, Episode 1 of the Reaction Shot podcast, POV Scream 2. And, before we start, I leave you with one question from Scream 2. Have you ever felt a knife cut through human flesh and scrape the bone beneath? Hi everyone, I'm Dave and I love movies. So, welcome to my podcast, The Reaction Shot. In each episode, I'll dive deep into a movie of any genre that holds a special place in my heart. But here's the twist. I bring on a guest who has never seen that movie before, until now. We discuss, dissect, and review from pre to post-production to behind-the-scenes stories and well into its impact on pop culture. Will we agree on everything, or will we have wildly different views? Thanks for hitting play. Let's roll tape and find out. Fade in. Hey everyone, welcome back to The Reaction Shot. I'm your host Dave, and here we are at Season 2. This is kind of crazy saying that I'm, doing a Season 2, such as my goal was originally to do like 10 episodes. I told myself I'm going to take an entire year, do 10 episodes, and just kind of see like if I enjoyed doing this and whatever it might be, if I could even do it at all. And I will say over the run of the first season, which ended up being 23 episodes, which were 22 movies, and then one extra episode that I actually posted a live video of me interviewing filmmaker Jamie Root. And so I ended up doing 24 episodes when I challenged myself to even do 10. So yeah, pretty excited to be here. And with this first episode, we are doing Scream 2. And by we, I mean returning guest. She was in a lot of my previous episodes from season 1 and was even my guest on the very first episode I ever did, which, it was a rough one, but it was the original Scream. Of course, that person is Lauren. We hear her giggling. She's so excited to be here.
I am.
To talk Yeah. Hi, Lauren. How are you?
Good. How are you? I think that first episode was like 3 hours long.
That first episode was definitely 3 hours, and I had no rhyme or reason. It literally was just me being like, I love Scream. I'm going to talk about every breath everyone takes in the entire film, and I'm going to tell you all my knowledge along the way.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Lauren was along for the ride, and she was quite the sport. So I feel like over time, within the 23 episodes that followed, I definitely grew a lot. I learned what worked and what didn't, and I'm still learning. So I appreciate you being here for season 2, Lauren, and I appreciate you being here for season 2, listeners. For the first episode of season 2, we are doing Scream 2. What a fitting first episode for season 2, right, Lauren?
It's very, like, I don't know, meaningful.
Very meaningful. It
Very
is.
meaningful.
It's like, yeah, it's like a full circle moment. At the very first episode we did, I didn't have a microphone. I was using my AirPods as the microphone, and obviously listening. I had no idea how to work this Riverside app. I was like, I don't know what this is. This looks cool. I'll toggle this button over. So I don't think you had a microphone.
I
don't even know
didn't
if you
have
had
one
headphones.
either, and I still don't have headphones, but
That's okay.
I feel like I
You
was
rock
like so low compared to you. It was like Dave right there in the microphone, and then I was like, "Hello guys, how are you?"
Yeah. I'm like, hi everyone, I'm prominent over Lauren. Perfect. So today we're doing Scream 2. I thought it was a very fitting episode to focus on for the first episode. So very fitting film to do. Scream is one of my favorite franchises. Definitely my favorite horror film franchise. And as we learned from the first episode, I can definitely talk for hours about it. But I'm a little more constructed now, guys. So we are safe there. I won't bore you for 3 hours today. So let me just start this off with. Okay, so the birth of this podcast kind of came off of an idea, a conversation actually that you and I had. Which was
you and me,
Lauren? Have you ever? Yeah, you and I. It was a slow growth over time.
Wow, I'm your muse.
I feel like you're my muse. I'll let them all know. My movie muse. I just feel like we always have conversations. Like obviously, I can talk till I'm blue in the face about film, and I'm always like, "Hey, Lauren, have you seen?" And you'd be like, "No." "Hey, Lauren, have you seen?" We've talked about this before. So
I haven't seen anything. Yeah.
You haven't seen anything, and that's okay. That's makes you a perfect candidate for all this stuff. So I remember I've always tried to get you into horror films, and you're like, absolutely not. I'm not watching horror movies. And I told you, I said, Scream is a gateway horror film to get into the genre. The Scream films are not just horror; it's more of like a crime whodunit, kind of like a true crime mystery you're watching unfold over time. Everything's connected. There's all the whodunit aspect, and you took my word for it, and you watched the entire franchise.
I did
because
yeah.
I think you enjoyed it, right? Like you actually like this franchise for the most part.
For the most part, yes, sure. Yes. I'm weird in the fact that I like the newer ones more.
That's okay.
Than the original ones, but we all have our own opinion. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, at the same exact time, I mean, looking back on, I'm not saying Scream is part of this, but looking back on films that I liked from the 80s, 90s, and, early 2000s, sometimes I go back and revisit them and I'm like, oh, why did I love this movie so much? So many
of those movies. Oh my God.
Yeah. So I feel like maybe because you came into the franchise late, you kind of have, a lot of things from our childhood, our teen years, early 20s, is definitely built off of nostalgia. Again, in my opinion, I'm not referring to Scream being just this, but I do think there's a nostalgic level to Scream, because it has been around for so many years. First film came out in 1996. So, I think you liking the newer films definitely makes sense. I do feel like there's a lot of people like that out there. So with that being said, Lauren, what is your history with Scream 2? How did you get introduced? Other than me introducing it to you, what was your first time ever watching it like, and why did you do it?
I honestly think the first time I watched it was after you said, I think it was after the first podcast, honestly. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I think. because I enjoyed Scream, and I'm like, I kind of want to watch these on my own. And you were shocked.
I was very shocked.
And I watched, I think, all of them, and then you and I saw the newest one in the theater.
Yeah, we saw. Yeah. You and Zach went to go see Scream 6, which was a great nerdy moment for me because I'm like, all right, one of my really good friends who's never seen anything, hates horror films, has now watched Scream 1 through 5, and we're about to go see Scream 6 together. So that's a great feeling. Scream 7 is in production right now and comes out in January of 2026.
Oh, yeah.
Super excited for that.
Actually,
I apologize.
Some, like, controversy? Like, isn't there some big... Is Nev...
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you don't want to go into it, but is Nev Campbell back in it?
Nev Campbell is back in it.
Yeah.
She is. Yep, so we got Nev and Courtney back this time around. Nev obviously wasn't in Scream 6, but she is brought back into this one. The only two returning characters that were, main character-wise that is not returning for 5 and 6 is Marissa Barrera and good old Jenna Ortega.
So they're not going to be in this one at all?
I don't think so. That's where the controversy was, and definitely don't want to get into all of that, just for obvious reasons. But regardless, we're excited moving forward with Scream 7. I did say it comes out in January. It's actually February that it comes out of 2026. So yeah, around this time next year, we'll be getting lots of promos for Scream 7, and it's crazy that we've made it this far. We're almost 30 years into the franchise, so insane.
Crazy. Can I make a side comment that has nothing to do with anything? You're wearing an Ohio State hat right now.
Yeah, I'm a really big football fan now.
Are you really?
No, but I feel like since I live in Ohio now.
I know. I'm like, Ohio has changed you, Dave.
It really has. I've actually watched the last 3 games.
Are you
guys.
serious?
I'm about to make a sports podcast, to be honest. Just kidding.
It'll be you and me. We'll be like, what's actually happening?
Yeah. Someone asked me the other day, they were like, you're finally getting into football. And I'm like, well, I only like games when, they're like close games, and it's like
exciting.
25 to 20. Yeah. When I'm like, it's 25 to 26 and they're like, you don't get just 1 point off. And I'm like, oh. So yeah, no sports podcast for me. We'll stick with the movies, guys.
I saw like this. This is totally random, but I saw this like Instagram reel where it was like, "Oh, they don't have the yellow line when you watch the games in person." When they make a first down.
That's hilarious.
Oh,
yeah. So okay. No sports podcast here, guys. But I am wearing an OSU hat. We won the championship, so I'm very excited.
All right, Dave.
It's the Buckeye blood now, guys. But actually, we can go ahead and make a connection to this conversation because Scream 2 takes place in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. There's our connection. That's why
I brought it up.
Yeah.
So yeah,
for sure. And we all know that Sydney was a hardcore OSU fan. Yeah, that was a deleted scene. So no surprise here. My history with Scream 2. It came out in 1997, and it was December of 97. So I was 9 when it came out. I saw it when I was 10 though. It was still in theaters. It went to the discount theater, where like they basically started playing films that were like almost out of the movie theaters. So they were all discounted prices all the time, whatever. So my aunt took me to go see it. We saw it. I absolutely loved it. Obviously I was a huge fan of the first one. So, afterwards my aunt brought me home and dropped me off. And not long after I had gotten home from seeing Scream 2, my home landline, a landline, not really around anymore, but the phone rang and it said we had caller ID and it said no caller ID on it. Okay. Whatever. I didn't think anything of it. I answered it and I'm like, hello. And on the other line was, my other aunt doing Ghostface's voice. And she's like, are you alone? And I vividly remember that because I just thought it was so much fun. And I thought for a millisecond, oh my God, Ghostface is here. He's going to kill me. But then at the same exact time, I'm like, this is a prank I would totally do. And that's where all of this
and have done.
From, so.
You have done that
have
to
done.
me.
I have done that. Yeah. Yeah. So to my aunt, that legacy has lived on. People who watch Scream, I got to make that phone call and do all that fun stuff. So that's my history with Scream 2. Yeah. So Scream 2 is a horror mystery suspense thriller. It's a total whodunit. It is written by Kevin Williamson, the returning writer from the first, and is also directed by Wes Craven, the returning director from the first. It was released on December 12th, 1997. Its estimated budget was $24 million, which is actually $9 million more than the original Scream. So the studio said, here's some more money. Yeah, I mean, they got a pretty amazing cast. I mean, it was everyone wanted to be in this movie, and they obviously got some really good ones.
It seems like every star from the 90s was in this movie.
100%.
It's like everyone.
Yeah, it literally everyone. We'll definitely get into that in a minute. So for its opening weekend, it made $32.9 million. The U.S. and Canada total gross for its theatrical run was $101.4 million. And the worldwide gross ended at $172.4 million. Pretty wild, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, for a horror film to be making that type of money back then, I mean, this was a big deal. They had a lot of big films coming out at the time, and there was actually two films that shared the same exact release date as Scream 2, but before the films came out, they ended up moving the release dates of two of them because they were afraid to go up against Scream 2.
They didn't want to compete.
And one of those...
Yeah,
and can you just randomly take a guess of what movie it might be?
Oh,
it's
God.
a really, really famous film.
Wait, 1997, Titanic.
In December. Yep.
Are you serious?
Isn't that crazy?
Oh my God.
You got it. Good job.
Wow.
Yeah, so originally scheduled to open alongside Tomorrow Never Dies, the 007 film at the time, and Titanic, obviously both blockbuster films. Those films both shifted their dates so they would not be up against Scream 2.
Wow.
How wild, right?
That is wild.
Yeah. So Scream actually made more money. Scream 2 made more money its opening weekend than Titanic did the following week.
Yeah, but then...
Well, yeah.
I went on. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, romance.
There's some romance in this, too.
There is some romance. There is a whole song in this movie, which we'll also get to.
I was referring to, but...
What romance are we talking about?
Dewey and frickin' Gale, Dave. That's who I'm talking about. The cutie patooties.
Definitely cutie patooties. Yeah, they're budding romance.
Budding romance, yes.
Dewey and good old Gale.
Good old Gale with her nice red streaks in her hair.
Courtney Cox always has some crazy hairstyle going on for these Scream films. So when Scream 2 came out, it was actually met with pretty favorable reviews, but a lot of people were saying that it fell very short of the original Scream. As of today, on Rotten Tomatoes, critics have it at an 82%, up against Scream's 77%.
Oh,
so
wow.
critics now seem to actually favor Scream 2 over the original Scream. Mm-hmm. However, the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes for Scream 2 is 58%,
Yikes.
where the original Scream is 80%.
Wow.
On Metacritic, we have a 62 out of 100 for Scream 2, compared to Scream's 66 out of 100. The user reviews on Metacritic has it at a 7.3 out of 10, and then for the original Scream, an 8.2 out of 10. On Letterboxd, critically, we have a 3.3 out of 5 for Scream 2, and for the original Scream, we have a 4 out of 5. And finally, rounding these out, currently on Internet Movie Database, we have a 6.3 out of 10 for Scream 2, compared to Scream's 7.4 out of 10. So, Lauren, in comparison to Scream 2 and Scream, it seems like a lot more people are definitely more favorable of the original Scream. Mm-hmm. So I want to jump right into the nitty-gritty here.
Oh boy, we're going right to it.
We're going right to it. We're jumping right in for that reaction shot. Lauren.
Oh, God.
I have two questions. The first question is, do you like the original Scream or Scream 2 more?
Oh, the original, for sure.
Okay.
100%.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being amazing film and 1 being abysmal, where do we put Scream 2?
Maybe a 4.25.
4.25. We're kidding. Wow, we can't. Yeah. Wow, we're not even like a 4.5
you know what,
here, guys.
though?
We're at a 4.25.
You know what's funny though, Dave? That's like one of the highest scores that I think I've given.
You are pretty brutal. What did you give Scream? What did you give the original Scream?
I think I gave it like a 6 or a 7.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think for some reason I was thinking 6, but I could not remember your actual. Yeah. But
I've given zeros before, so a 4.25 is like.
Yeah, listen. Yeah, we're talking Oscars here, guys, with Lauren here. Okay, all right. So my reaction, and no surprise to anyone, I actually have a really hard time saying which Scream movie I like better. I love the original Scream, and I love Scream 2 so much. In my opinion, I like to put them on one right after the other consecutively. Like, I feel like sitting down and watching both Scream 1 and 2 together is like the ultimate experience. Like I feel like they're connected and go hand in hand so well together. That's just something I prefer to do. I think the original Scream has a lot more bigger, iconic, memorable moments. But I think Scream 2 has a lot of great things going for it as well. So I do struggle a little bit. Whenever I do normal rankings of the Scream franchise, I do put the original Scream first, simply based on the fact that Scream is the first of this franchise, and Scream just blew everyone's expectations out of the water. I mean, like I just said, one whole year later, they moved Scream 2. They moved movies away from Scream 2 because they thought it was going to be so popular. And I think that says a lot. So I did a poll on my reaction shot Instagram page to try to see who prefers these, which movie over the other. And after 28 votes, I had 80% people say the original Scream is better. And I had 7 people say Part 2 is superior to the original. And I also asked the question, one of the other things they could have voted on was either one of those two or sequels always suck. And no one voted for that. So still looks like the original Scream is in the win here. But with that being said, Lauren, did you find like a ridiculous review for Scream 2 online that you wanted to share with us?
I did, but I will say, I don't know why, but I had a tough time getting through it. I had to like watch it multiple times, and then I would stop it and then be like, oh, I'll finish it, and then I don't know. I had such a hard time getting through it this time, and I don't know why.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely get into why here shortly.
Okay.
But did you find a good review?
I think I did. Yeah. Hold on. Let me.
Perfect.
Oh my gosh, what's going on?
So I asked Lauren to look at some reviews for Scream 2 and try to find something like absolutely ridiculous, because sometimes I read reviews for movies and I'm like, that's not a review. That's just people complaining about silly things.
Well, this one,
but sometimes they're really funny.
This one, yeah, this one's kind of. Well, this one, they gave it a 4. Okay, a 4 out of 10. Okay. They said. So we're kind of in line here.
Okay.
So they said, okay, I enjoyed Scream. It kept me guessing, and it wasn't as bad as I expected it to be. Now, from a long-distance perspective, Scream 2 wasn't too bad. I mean, her boyfriend in this one is hot, and the scene with him on the cross and her going through some serious doubts was well done, I thought. Getting the hard-hitting stuff right out of the way here.
Oh, man, guys, yeah.
A for effort.
Wow.
Well, this one's long. Okay.
Oh.
A for effort. You knew the butt part was coming. Scream 2 was okay, but come on. I give full pardons to those characters who have not been in Scream 1 and have not been heretofore. Yes, they used that word. Chased by a raving psychopath with a knife. Think about this seriously, folks. It's school time and you've just gotten rid of, barely, a murderous duo who slash half your friends and acquaintances. What is your summer activity most likely going to be? That's right, boys and girls. Martial arts training and marksmanship training.
What the?
You would also be carrying around, if nothing else for crying out loud, a can of mace. Okay, those thoughts aside. Say maybe these characters are not going to let the violence of society turn them hard and coarse. Fair enough. I can respect the pacifist viewpoint. But for God's sake, it starts happening again and you just casually hang around. A danger to your friends and significant others? No, my friends, you would get a car, check all the trunks, back seats, etc., get in your car and drive. Where? Who cares? Somewhere else where your friends are not going to get hurt. I mean, she essentially was the cause of both her roommates and her boyfriend's murder. Sigh. Just had to get that off my chest. I'll probably watch Scream 3 if it comes out too. Hoping against hope that one of the characters picks up a gun before the end when it's basically pointless.
Okay, that was a pretty good, ridiculous, and brutal review.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
That person, man. What was that person's name? I'm gonna start stalking.
Oh my gosh, let me see. I have to pull this back up again. Oh, it doesn't say. It doesn't say on here, but it's from.
They don't want to hear from me.
It was from IMDb. Okay. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That was a good one. I didn't get anything as good as that, but I did find 3 very short ones. But I'm just like, what? These aren't. I don't know. So this is from Sketterling. What a great name. From Sketterling on Letterboxd, and they said, honestly, it gave me nothing, bored me to tears, but plus bonus points is what they said. But plus bonus points for all those pretty women.
Oh my God.
Boo. Okay, bro. And then we also have a review from someone named Ava on Letterboxd, who said, I give this a 0 out of 10 because they killed off my favorite character and Matthew Lillard was not in it. Randy, I will always love you, Randy.
Aw, Randy.
Oh, Randy.
That one was sad.
Poor Randy.
Poor Randy.
And then we also have another review, my last one to share. It's a 1-star on Letterboxd from someone named Shaw. And that review is, I legitimately thought Scream 2 was a spoof movie making fun of other horror movies. Very predictable plot. I never once feared for the main character's life and knew who would be dead and alive in the end. Lots of needless gore and overdramatic scenes. Way too many F-bombs for any movie. Very, very bad.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
All right, Shaw. You know what? There's not a lot of F words in that movie. There is, but that's okay. It's okay.
There's not that many.
We're all adults. No, I feel like the first Scream had... I feel like in the finale alone of the original Scream had more F words than the rest of the films.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
But, who am I? It's fine. Yeah, it's always interesting to see what other people think, too, out there. Some people make really quick reviews, just like, saying, I didn't like the movie because Randy died. And with that being said, I'll also get into a little bit more is, don't we want these films to take risks? We don't want everything to be all cookie cutter and whatever. So the real, unfortunately, the people that, we love, that we see every single day, something like that could happen to them. And that's real life to me. And I'm glad, I love Randy too. Randy, when I first saw the original Scream movie, I'm like, this guy's kind of like me because I love movies so much too. Yeah, he is me. So I definitely felt it when he died. But you know what? To me, that gave it some backbone for sure. So a lot of people talk about Scream 2 being, some people say it's a little bit all over the place. I actually feel the opposite. However, one thing that some people might not know is that Scream 2 went into production so fast. It came into production 6 months after the original Scream.
Oh, wow.
So that's 6 months.
So fast.
Yeah. So the original Scream came out on December 26th, 1996. Scream 2 came out on December 12th, 1997.
Not even a year.
That is not even a year.
That's crazy.
So 6 months it went into production, and then in less than 6 months, that movie was on projectors in the theaters. How crazy is that?
That's insane.
So I usually do tell people, if they think it's messy, which I don't think it is, I think it's very well put together for a movie that was thrown together in pretty much 6 months of filming time to release. Like that's doesn't really happen nowadays, to be honest.
No, it takes like 4 years in between movies now, I swear.
Yeah, it's insane. So, production from Scream 5 to Scream 6 was pretty quick, but it was not that quick. And this production, so there's a rumor that the script leaked halfway through production, so Kevin Williamson had to rewrite all of that stuff. So we will get into that once I break down the film a little bit here. But yeah, there was some crazy stuff happening on set, constant rewrites, reshoots and everything. And I think if you look at it from that perspective, this movie is very well put together. So that's just my opinion, but I do feel like that's kind of where it's at. So, all right. Scream 2 has an amazing cast. We talked about this a little bit before, but it was, at the time, you definitely could pretty much name who every single person was. Mm-hmm. Oh, excuse me. So they essentially got all these super famous people because all these super famous people wanted to be a part of Scream 2. So they kind of found homes for everything. They had multiple people auditioning for different parts to try to make sure they were part of the main cast and all that fun stuff. So what we ended up with, I think, was pretty good casting. Our cast of characters we have returning Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers, David Arquette as Dewey Riley, and Jamie Kennedy as Randy Meeks. Mm-hmm. So those were our Woodsboro survivors. They are back here for Scream 2. The film takes place 2 years after the events of the first one. And I think they did a really good job of making them look a little bit more mature, a little bit older, even though they were literally, probably about a year from the time they had finished filming the first one. Mm-hmm. So they definitely did a good job there. For the rest of the cast, we have Timothy Olyphant as Mickey Altieri, Jerry O'Connell as Derek Feldman, Elise Neal as Hallie McDaniel, Leah Schreiber as Cotton Weary, Sarah Michelle Gellar as Cece Cooper, Dwayne Martin as Joel Martin, Laurie Metcalf as Debbie Salt, Jada Pinkett Smith as Maureen Evans, Omar Epps as Phil Stevens, and Roger Jackson as Ghostface's voice. We also have very small cameos and small parts from Joshua Jackson as a film student, Portia de Rossi as sorority sister Murphy, David Warner as Gus, the drama teacher, Nancy O'Dell as a reporter, and we also have very small, quick scenes from the Stab film based on the Woodsboro murders. Those actors are Heather Graham as Casey Becker, which was Drew Barrymore's character, Tori Spelling playing Sidney Prescott, and Luke Wilson playing Billy Loomis.
You forgot one tie-in to our second podcast we ever did.
Oh, go ahead, Lauren. Give it to us.
Rebecca Gerhart.
Rebecca Gayheart. Thank you.
From Jawbreaker.
Her. Guys, Rebecca Gayheart. We do love Rebecca Gayheart. Yeah. Yes, so Rebecca Gayheart is one of the sisters with sorority sister Murphy, played by Portia de Rossi. They are really good friends. And I actually have one more fun little fact that maybe some people don't know. But there's also another cameo in the film from someone who was kind of up and coming at the time. We only hear their voice. Do you happen to know who it is? It's the person who is talking to Sarah Michelle Gellar's character Cece on the phone.
Oh, shoot. No, I have no idea.
So Cece gets a phone call, and before she starts talking to Ghostface, she's talking to her friend about Party of Five and the things that are happening on Party of Five, which is a connection to, obviously, Neve Campbell and Jennifer Love Hewitt, who Sarah Michelle Gellar would then star with in I Know You Did Last Summer. But the person on the phone, the girl that she's talking to, her friend, is her real-life friend, Selma Blair.
Aw, that's nice.
Cute little connection. Then they would go on to do... Yeah, then they would go on to do Cruel Intentions together, so that's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, so we're going to play a little game for a second. I wanted to introduce this on a couple of the episodes to start off the season. I do want to play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, which I think is a lot of fun. But ultimately, I wanted to pick an actor from the film and try to see who can get to Kevin Bacon faster by connecting films. Obviously, Neve Campbell would have been the obvious choice because they did Wild Things together. So I chose Joshua Jackson, who is probably in this film for about a minute, if that. But I thought it'd be fun to grab him because everyone knows who he is. I feel like he's definitely having a nice little comeback the past couple of years, and people are definitely paying attention to Joshua Jackson again, so we love to see that. Mm-hmm. So, Lauren, did you get to do your 6 Degrees of Kevin
did,
Bacon?
But I think you're definitely going to win.
Oh, you never know.
I never know. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I have 5 degrees.
That's okay. What we got?
Okay. Joshua Jackson. I don't even know if I did this right.
You're good.
Okay, so Joshua Jackson, Scream 2, was with Reese Witherspoon in Cruel Intentions, who was with Matthew McConaughey in Mud. I've never seen these movies. Who was with Sarah Jessica Parker in Failure to Launch, who was with Kevin Bacon in Footloose.
There you go. Hey, that's actually a pretty good one. Good job. Look at you. Mm-hmm. Hey, you made it all the way to Footloose. We'd love to see that.
I was like, my one goal in this is to end up at Footloose.
I love that. My original goal was to start with Cruel Intentions, and I never got to make that connection, so... You definitely did a great job of getting Cruel Intentions somewhere. So, yeah, good job there. Mine's a little quicker, but mine are a little bit lesser known movies. So I have Joshua Jackson is in Scream 2, who also starred in a film called Inescapable with Marissa Tomei. And Marissa Tomei starred with Kevin Bacon in Loverboy.
Okay. All right. So you win.
But yours... No, but you ended up at Footloose and used Cruel Intentions, so you win in my book, Lauren. Good job. See, that's fun. But yeah, I just thought it would be cool. One of the lines in the film is in Scream 2. I'm sorry. One of the lines in Scream 2 is connecting the new movie Stab. Connecting it all to Sydney and some sort of 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon type of way is what they said. So that'd be fun to kind of incorporate that into some episodes and kind of have a little bit of fun with it. I might switch up if we do Kevin Bacon or just some other random actor that you connect it with. So, yeah, good job, Lauren.
Yay.
Welcome, Footloose.
Footloose had to end there. The chat. Yes.
Good job. Cool. So, one last little fun fact about the box office for Scream, just to get you a good idea here. The original Scream made $173 million at the box office. And as I mentioned, Scream 2 made $172.4, which is $683,000 less. That's it. That's how close Scream 2 was to matching Scream's original box office run.
But don't you expect sequels to like surpass?
I mean, it definitely depends, and that's the great conversation of sequels. So I feel like you always get your torn audience of, Scream is an amazing film. They're going to ruin it by doing a Scream 2. I'm not going to see that. Or it's, I want to go see Scream. I love the movie so much. I mean, there are definitely a lot of sequels out there that I don't want to watch because I don't see the point in them. But I personally think Scream 2 is a great sequel. So it doesn't seem like everyone else feels that way. But I think it's pretty great that Scream 2 made essentially just about the same amount of money. So it didn't make a lot less. Obviously, you want the movies to make more, but Scream 2 still holds its own here almost 30 years later, which is crazy.
30 years?
Crazy.
Oh, good.
Isn't that insane?
I can't.
So when Scream 7 comes out, it'll be 30 years that the original Scream came out. So, yeah.
Are you telling me that people born in 1996 are almost 30 years old, Dave?
This is the unfortunate thing that I'm telling you, Lauren.
Why are you doing this to me?
I know, that's a horror movie all in itself.
That means I'm going to be 40 soon.
I'm sorry, you're going to what now?
Be 40 soon, and I don't want to talk about that.
we
Not
won't
soon.
talk
I
about
still have
that.
a few years.
I interviewed a girl the other day who said, I dropped my name of being, my name. I dropped my age of being almost 37. And she went, she looked at me like crazy. And I'm like, what is she about to say?
Oh, God.
And I thought you were like, and I braced myself. She said, I thought you were like 25 or 26. And needless to say, I ripped up the interview paper and I hired her.
You're hired.
You are hired. Nothing else matters. All we got through was her name and my age. So, I was talking about how long I was in the restaurant business, and I was like, I've been doing this since I was 16. And I paused for a second, and I thought about it, and I was like, oh, that's 20 years.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we won't talk about that anymore.
Nope,
but
we're done.
Let's get into. But we're gonna get into Scream 2. Everyone, bear with me for a minute while I tell you everything that happens in Scream 2, and then Laura and I will get into a great discussion about this wonderful 1997 horror film. I'm getting my reading voice ready. I wrote a nice little breakdown. Of course, I want to say everything about everything and every breath everyone takes, but I'm not going to. So hopefully this does a good job of telling you what the movie's about.
I'm going to crack open another Truly here.
Hey,
so, yep.
Crack it open. All you listeners, if you're at home in the comfort of your own home, crack open a Truly or pour yourself a drink or whatever you do. Just sit back and enjoy.
I am. That's what I'm going to do right now.
Lauren's like, yes, thanks for the permission. All right, Scream 2, 1997. Written by Kevin Williamson, directed by Wes Craven. The film begins with an exterior shot of the Rialto Theater where two Windsor College seniors, Maureen Evans and Phil Stevens, attend a sneak preview of Stab, a film based on a book by Gail Weathers' experience during the Woodsboro Massacre that happened 2 years ago. Maureen is hesitant as she prefers Sandra Bullock films over horror and its lack of diversity. As Stab starts, the rowdy audience dressed... Yes, and we will definitely get into that. As Stab starts, the rowdy audience dressed in studio souvenir Ghostface costumes begin cheering for the iconic opening kill of Casey Becker, played by Heather Graham. Maureen, slightly nervous, tries to hide her unease by joking with Phil. Briefly, leaving the theater to use the restroom, Phil enters the bathroom and notices two people in Ghostface costumes at the urinals, forcing him into a stall. Suddenly, Phil is attacked through the siding of the stall from the other side, getting stabbed right into the side of the head. Lying dead in a pool of blood, the killer, now wearing Phil's jacket, returns to the theater and sits beside Maureen, mimicking Phil's mannerisms. Maureen, still engrossed in the film, reacts to an on-screen scare and hugs who she thinks is Phil. Noticing blood on her hands from the embrace, she is caught off guard and stabbed repeatedly. Her desperate screams and frantic struggle through the fan-filled crowd finally brings her to climb onto the platform in front of the screen. At first, it's mistaken by everyone for a publicity stunt, leaving the audience in shock when they realize that her scream is real and she collapses dead. The next day, we are shown Sydney Prescott asleep in her college dorm room, being awoken by a phone call. On the other line is someone impersonating Ghostface, and she clocks it for being a prank, thanks to her new caller ID technology. We are at Windsor College, where Sydney and Randy both attend. It's in Ohio. It has become the epicenter of media frenzy. Local journalist Debbie Salt eagerly reports on the unfolding events, hoping for her big break, just like her idol, Gale Weathers. Sydney, trying to maintain her normal college life, finds comfort in the new close-knit friend group that she has. Those friends are roommate Hallie, new boyfriend Derek, fellow Woodsboro survivor Randy, and Derek's friend Mickey. Sydney's past haunts her as she becomes the center of attention once again. Adding to her anxiety, 2 other Woodsboro survivors arrive at the scene. Police Deputy Dewey Riley, whose limp from previous injuries is now more pronounced, and reporter Gale Weathers is driven by her ambition for what is happening. Gale's new cameraman Joel is skeptical about the dangers, but Gale reassures him. Gale attempts to stage a confrontation between Sydney and Cotton Weary, the man that she seeked as the original murderer of her mother. However, he was wrongfully accused and imprisoned for Maureen Prescott's rape and murder. The tense encounter falls flat, leaving Cotton frustrated. That evening, Sydney and Hallie attend a lively party at the Delta Lambda Zeta sorority house. Laughters and music fill the air as students celebrate, trying to forget the recent horrors. However, over at OMEGA Beta Zeta, a nearby sorority house, Ghostface strikes again, brutally murdering student Cece Cooper. The partygoers rush out to witness the commotion, leaving Sydney vulnerable. Ghostface infiltrates Delta Lambda Zeta, attacking Sydney in a chaotic struggle. Derek tries to protect her, but is injured in the process. The police arrive, forcing Ghostface to flee, leaving Sydney and Derek shaken. In the aftermath, Gale pieces together the clue that Cece is actually short for Casey and makes a connection with Casey Becker, realizing now that the new Ghostface is targeting individuals from the same names as the original victims in Woodsboro. Randy suggests that the killer is someone Sydney knows, replicating the homicides in a sequel-like pattern. The following day, Gale, Dewey, and Randy receive a chilling call from Ghostface while they're on campus. The trio frantically searches for the killer on the other line, but Ghostface remains hidden. However, in a horrifying turn of events, Ghostface ambushes Randy, dragging him into Joel's media van and brutally murdering him. Joel, now terrified, decides to leave town immediately, fearing that he may be next. As night falls, Dewey and Gale review footage captured by Joel, hoping to spot the killer at previous crime scenes. The tension between the two of them, as they relive their traumatic moments, brings them a little closer together. Romance may even be in the air. Suddenly, Ghostface attacks, causing a chase scene through an audio-video room. Safe behind soundproof glass, Gale sees Dewey on the other side, who is then ambushed by Ghostface, stabbing Dewey repeatedly as Gale watches in horror. Meanwhile, 2 officers driving Sydney and Hallie to a safe house are attacked by Ghostface, killing one officer and driving the other on the hood of the car. Ghostface wrecks the car, killing the other officer instantly and leaving Ghostface unconscious. Sydney and Hallie escape the wreckage, but ultimately Ghostface recovers and kills Hallie. Seeking safety, Sydney is drawn to music playing at the local campus theater. She discovers Derek tied to a cross, the remains of a fraternity hazing ritual for giving Sydney his Greek letters. Ghostface reveals himself as Mickey, who then kills Derek in a shocking display. Mickey confesses his plan to kill Sydney and get arrested, aiming to blame movie violence for the murders and becoming famous through his on-air trial, similar to O.J. Simpson. Debbie Salt arrives and reveals herself as Mickey's accomplice, Nancy Loomis, the mother of Woodsboro killer Billy Loomis. Nancy betrays Mickey, shooting him and affirming she only used him to frame him for the killing spree. Mickey, in his last moments, manages to fire off his gun before collapsing, injuring Gale, who falls off stage. Nancy, seeking revenge against Sydney for Billy's death, discloses that she killed Randy for slandering Billy's name. Sydney highlights Nancy's hypocrisy as her abandonment fueled Billy's psychosis. Cotton arrives and, despite Nancy's attempts to manipulate him, decides to shoot her in exchange for an interview with Sydney and Diane Sawyer. Sydney, Cotton, and Gale glance over Nancy, who again is Debbie Salt's body, as Mickey resurfaces but is killed by Gail and Sydney. Sydney assures Nancy's death by shooting her right in the head. When the police arrive, Dewey is revealed to be alive, much to Gail's relief. She chooses to stay by Dewey's side in the ambulance rather than rejoining the returning Joel. Sydney, in a selfless act, directs the press to Cotton, removing attention from herself and rewarding Cotton for his assistance in it all. And that is Scream 2.
That is Scream 2.
Is that a pretty good breakdown?
That was
you
a
feel
good
like
breakdown, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like we got all that covered here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this opening scene. In comparison.
Oh my god.
So in comparison with the first film, which is the iconic Drew Barrymore playing Casey Becker, which opening scene do you think is better, Scream or Scream 2?
Scream. I love Jada Pinkett Smith, but it was so unreal. Like, if you walked into that movie theater, would you not just turn the fuck around?
Thank you so much. If I walked into a movie theater like that, I would, yes, walk the fuck out for sure.
Yeah.
I get what they were going for in terms. I feel like if this was a film, something like this happens in Scream 4 when a bunch of the kids get together to watch their favorite horror movie franchise. If you put me in a theater that I rented out with my friends watching a film that came out in 1997, sure, we could have a good time, whatever. But I have said many, many times, when I go to see movies, I hate when people talk. I hate when people play on their phone. This would make me so pissed. I would immediately ask for my money back.
There are no words for how, like, you know how, like, Wicked just came out and, like, there were signs on, like, every movie theater, do not sing along. Like, people were standing, they had fake knives. Why the fuck would you give out a costume of Ghostface? Like,
right.
Oh God, no. Nope.
Yeah, I agree with you. To paint a picture for everyone, like I said, the studio gives Ghostface costumes out to everyone in the audience. So all these people are now dressed as Ghostface. So you're looking at this audience, from the screen and on looking over. Everyone's dressed in Ghostface costumes, and like Lauren said, they have fake knives. The movie is filmed in Stabo-Vision, which is 3D and glow in the dark, I guess, something like that. Everything lights up all green and stuff. I wouldn't be a fan. Everyone's like screaming and cheering and talking. Of course, Jada Pinkett Smith's character Maureen definitely is very vocal through the film about how stupid the character is, and this is later spoofed in Scary Movie. So this is ultimately a very, very popular, iconic moment.
Scary Movie?
No, but the character Brenda does this scene over, and she like goes all crazy talking during the film. It's really funny.
I was fully on board with what Jada was saying, and I would have wanted to go see a Sandra Bullock movie too.
Yes, you would. So Jada's character Maureen talks about how she doesn't like horror films, she doesn't like being scared, and she doesn't like how historically it's always white people, and there's never people of color, there's no diversity, anything like that. And to be honest with you, it took a very long time for that to change. And sure, we can look back on certain old horror films and say there are people of color in, this movie or that. However, it usually, ends bad for the people of color. They end up, being the ones that are killed. It's an unfortunate ongoing joke sometimes. If you see a person of color, anyone who's not a white person, they're most likely going to die and probably be like one of the first people that die. And I'm really glad that we kind of shook that. But with that being said, with the Scream franchise being as meta and aware of things that are going on, they definitely, hit the nail on the head with that one, because the original Scream, can you tell me how many people of color are in that movie? Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I don't even think, especially in the main cast, there is none. And Kevin Williamson, who wrote the screenplay for both, definitely played on that. So he probably, he heard people saying, why is there not more diversity in this film? So he definitely used this opening scene to ham it up. However, it kind of falls flat because we get introduced to these two characters, and then, of course, they are then immediately killed.
I was bummed because I saw Jada and I love Jada, so I was like, oh, shit, she's in the opening scene. Like, we all know what happened. I was, like, pissed.
Yeah. Yeah. Jada Pinkett Smith loved Scream, and she wanted to be in a horror film, and she asked Wes Craven if she could be a part of this. And of course, he was all for it. So she did a great job. Her scene walking up to the screen when she's dying.
My God, that scene.
And how I mentioned, everyone just thinks it's a big publicity stunt for the film. And the look she does, her cry, and then her final collapse. Mm-hmm. And then the way the camera lingers a little bit on her dead body.
Yep.
Like, how awful.
Yeah.
Absolutely
that
awful.
Was crazy.
But I'm very glad that we had the conversation about people of color and things like that. She makes a comment about the mask even being white.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you definitely think the first Scream had the better opening?
Yeah. Just based on how pissed I would be going into that movie theater.
Sure. No, I totally get that.
Standing and shit. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
I can't.
Just, way too rowdy. Guys, don't ever make movies like that again. My experience is awful. So after the opening scene, of course, we are reintroduced to Sydney. Trauma's a big topic of conversation in this film and in the continuation of all the Scream films. I think in your review you mentioned how, not your review, the review that you read, that person made a reference to Sydney being the reason why her boyfriends and friends are dead, and I think that's pretty brutal because it's not Sydney's fault, but Sydney has a lot of trauma. She has scars that, she has physical scars and tons of emotional scars. So
I'm actually surprised how well adjusted she is in college for how much trauma she's endured.
For sure. I think that is what makes Sydney such a popular final girl, is that she's overcome a lot and she doesn't let it define her. She kind of rises above it, where, Laurie Strode from the Halloween franchise was a very great final girl. In my opinion, with the newest trilogy that they had, she kind of she kind of cowered. She kind of went into hiding. She learned how to use a gun, and she kind of wasted her life, locked up in her own house and avoiding the outside world, where I feel Sydney just kind of embraces it. She overcame this and she's moving on, and unfortunately things do keep happening to her. So there should become a point where she's like, I'm not doing this shit anymore.
Yeah.
And as we see in later films, she just kind of pulled back a little bit, realizing that, someone's going to keep coming after her, but she is a true friend and family member, because she's there for her friends and family, despite all of that. So I think that's what makes her great. I know we've talked about final girls before. Do you think Sydney's a good final girl? Do you think, based on her character, especially in this film, you said that you're surprised where she's at. Do you think it's realistic or not?
I only meant that based on myself, I would not be.
You wouldn't be that.
I wouldn't be that. No. So, yeah. No, I think she's a good final girl because of that,
obviously you would inspire to be be like Sydney if you went through something as traumatic as this, right? Yeah. So.
Yeah.
She
reminds me of, what's that Terrifier girl's name?
Oh God, why can't I think of her name?
I can't think of it either.
Somewhere someone's listening, screaming the name at us right now.
But she reminds me of her. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the Terrifier franchise, obviously starting with Terrifier 2, the actress Lauren Lavera does
know her real name, but you don't know her character.
Yeah.
Why am I like, it's Sydney too?
Hey, we just call everyone Sydney and call it a day.
It does start with an S, I think. Sienna.
Sienna. Yep, that's it. It's Sienna. Sorry, guys, that took a long time to get to. So it's okay. Yes, no, that's a really good connection, and I totally agree with you that Sienna kind of has this strong will and that fight back. You know, she's not running from her past. She's not running from, you know, her destiny. If we're talking about Terrifier, yeah, I think Sydney's written really well that way, and I think her I don't know, that's what just makes her so great, is that she's not running. She's still a vulnerable person. She fights back and she protects those that she loves, and that's Sydney Prescott. And that's what we look for in a final girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she gets a prank phone call because the world is going crazy for Stab. The Stab movie is directed by Robert Rodriguez in that universe, and it's funny because the connection with who plays Neve Campbell's character, Sydney. In the original Scream, Sydney talks about if they made it into a movie, she said, knowing my luck, they would probably cast someone like Tori Spelling. And they approached Tori Spelling, and Tori Spelling plays Sydney. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing. I mean, what a good sport for Tori to be like, yeah, I'll do that, even though Sydney kind of makes a remark that maybe Tori's not a good actress, or it'd be corny if she played her. But I think that's funny.
On a side note, also Luke Wilson playing Billy Loomis with like the hair, like that. So good.
Yeah, and that change of dialogue too, just like it's very like small stuff, but it's like way sillier, like really corny. But hey, apparently the movie theater's going crazy for it. It's a huge hit. The media's everywhere, all over the college, and Sydney's just kind of like, is this happening again? She has a prank phone call. It's funny because I don't know why I can never remember people's phone numbers, but I always remember she looks at the caller ID and she says, Corey Gillis, 555-0176.
Stop, Dave. Are you kidding me right now?
No, I always remember it. I always do. I don't know why.
Wow.
Don't know why.
Okay.
Yeah. So, in the scene too, our first view of Cotton, who we know has escaped from jail. On the television in the dorm room, we see Cotton doing an interview on Inside Edition, being interviewed about being wrongfully accused and happy to be out and about. That interviewer is Kevin Williamson. That's actually the writer of the film. So nice little cameo there from Kevin.
Definitely noticed that too.
Did you? Good. You knew that. We're reintroduced to Randy. He's in a film class. He's talking about sequels and if sequels are better than the original film, which we already talked about. But can you name any sequels that you think are better than the original film, Lauren? It's okay if you can't, but
dear Lord. I think it's funny that I'm such a Star Wars fan, and someone mentioned Empire Strikes Back, and Jamie Kennedy was like, that doesn't count because it's a trilogy, and it was a known trilogy. I'm like, wow.
You're like, never mind.
Never mind.
Is that what you would have said, though?
I love Empire.
If you were in this class?
Oh, yeah. I love Empire Strikes Back. You know, we should do Star Wars, Dave.
We should.
Have you ever seen it?
Many, many years ago, and only the original
Could
3
you say
and episode 1.
In a galaxy far, far away? A long time.
In a galaxy far, far away.
A long time ago. In a galaxy far, far away.
Oh, wow. I can see the font just going across the sky as I speak. Or space, not the sky.
Dave. Oh, God.
It's okay. Yeah.
Space, Dave. Space.
Space. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's why there's Wars of the Stars. I get it.
All right.
But with the sequel talk, I will agree that I think Aliens is a better film than Alien. There's just so much more meat to it. It's a little bit of horror. It's a little bit of action. It's never boring. And again, I think Scream 2 holds up pretty well up against Scream. So I would definitely say those for sure.
I have to think about it. I have to think about it.
No, sure. Yeah. I get it. I love the film class. A lot of people say, I didn't go to college, but a lot of people say that a college class is nothing like that. Just sitting around talking about films, like that wouldn't be how that all played out. But regardless, that class that they're in, I would love that.
I could see you in that class.
I'd have so much fun. Yeah. I could have so much fun. I'd even teach it. It's fine.
You could at this point, yeah.
Put me in a history class, I'd be silent as hell. Put me in that class, I'd shut the fuck up.
See, I'm the opposite.
Oh, man. So then we get introduced to Derek. We'll talk about Derek a little bit. So do you think Derek's a good boyfriend?
I have mixed feelings on Derek.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What don't you like about him?
She clearly needed space. And he was not. Like, he's never had the same experiences as she has. And she, obviously needed some time to herself. And he was just very pushy. And I did not like that.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I was going to ask.
To be honest, like, her last boyfriend was the frickin' murderer. So obviously there's some feelings there.
Sure.
So, I mean, he seemed very pushy to me and not understanding enough, which, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, no, I get it. And then a little bit later on in the film, he does give his Greek letters to her after, as you mentioned, after she asks for some space. He then gives his Greek letters to her, and he does this big romantic
on top of a table. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he does this big romantic gesture in the middle of the college cafeteria. He stands on the table and sings, "I think I love you, so what am I so afraid of?" in front of everyone.
In front of everyone.
And he sings about as good as me, almost as good as me. Okay, I'm bad, but maybe not that bad. No, I'm pretty bad. No one wants to hear me sing at all.
I want to hear you sing, Dave.
No one does. You don't either.
Can we harmonize?
Sure. No.
When we do that one thing in March.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have an exciting episode planned, but I don't want to talk about it yet. But we'll definitely get into that.
Yes.
It's going to be a little surprise, but I will not sing. I almost asked you who the better boyfriend was, Derek or Billy, but that's a really dumb question.
Yes.
I'm not going to ask that. So one thing I see a lot too is that they think Hallie is a really bad friend to Sydney. Do you agree with that?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think
they were like, "You need to get out of here." She's like, "I'm coming with you." Like, there's no questions asked. She's like packing up her stuff and going with her friend. I don't think she's a bad friend at all. I think she's actually a really good friend. Yeah.
Good. I agree. Yeah, I think she's a pretty good friend, and I wish she would have made it to the end. I wish she would have been a final girl. When we were talking about the lack of diversity and stuff, and how, unfortunately, people of color would always die off early in horror films. I thought Hallie would be the person that makes it to the end. I will say, on a happy note, though, that Joel does make it, because he says, "You know what? Fuck this shit. I'm getting out of town. I'm not going to be here to get murdered myself or watch anyone get murdered. So I'm going to peace out." And then he comes back once he knows everything's better. So kind of smart guy. So I guess he wins the award for that.
Yeah. He also was hilarious.
Mm-hmm. We like Joel.
Yeah.
A lot of great dialogue, a lot of great banter in this film. I think Kevin Williamson is really known for his dialogue, and I think this film has a lot of great lines, a lot of funny things. I like when Randy looks at Gail from afar when he first sees her, and she's like, "Huh, she got calf implants." Like, what the hell?
Yeah. Who gets calf implants?
Well, apparently Gail Weathers does. What do we think about Dewey? Dewey's return. He's coming here 2 years later. He's coming to Ohio to check on Sydney and Randy to make sure they're okay. He has a little bit of a limp and stuff. How do you feel about Dewey? We love Dewey, right?
Dave, like, there are no words to describe how I feel about Dewey. He's like the definition of what do people call like a golden retriever person?
He is a golden retriever person. Perfect.
Yeah.
People haven't seen this film are literally picturing a half man, half golden retriever.
No, he is like.
I'm just kidding.
He's just the best. He's awesome. And Gail better not fuck it up. That's all I gotta say. I'll come for her.
She better not, Gail. God damn it, Gail.
Gail.
There's a scene in the film where they are all talking about who the killer might be, and Courtney Cox talks about how so they notice that Courtney's character Gail is smoking, and Dewey asks Randy, when did she start smoking? And it's said that she started smoking when leaked nudes came on the internet of her. Yeah. And Gail says it wasn't me, it's Jennifer Aniston's body.
My head, Jennifer Aniston's body. And that was the first time they made a Friends reference. I noticed the second time as well.
What was the second one?
God, it was... Dewey... Randy was complaining because a nobody was playing him in the Stab movie, and I guess he was telling Dewey like, "Oh, you got David Schwimmer." I noticed that.
Yeah. So we got some friend references here. Good job, which is great. Also, they are referring to a real life incident at the time. Right after Scream came out, there were fake leaked nude pictures of Courtney Cox all over the internet.
Seriously?
It had nothing to do with it had nothing to do with Jennifer Aniston. That was just kind of thrown in there for a joke and a Friends reference, but. There were leaked, I guess, super fake looking pictures, but obviously everyone started talking about it. This was the beginning ages of the internet. So, people were like, we have nude pictures of Courtney Cox. So I'm sure that kind of messed with her a little bit. So I'm happy that either Kevin originally wrote it in the script or Courtney kind of brought it up and they kind of poked fun at it in general. But that is like the meta conversation that Scream always has of what's going on in pop culture at the time.
I didn't know that, so I'm glad she was able to make fun of it.
Poke a little fun.
Yeah.
We also love references. More references was Sarah Michelle Gellar plays Cece Cooper, who lives at Omega Beta Zeta, which I say Omega Beta Zeta all the time because I don't know why. I've heard people that have, like, when you leave voicemails for them, like their answering machine, like their greeting is Omega Beta Zeta.
Because of this movie?
Or people answer the phone that way. Like, Omega Beta Zeta is a very, is like a constantly used thing when it comes to this film. People always say it. When I say people always say it, I'm talking about, big fans of the horror franchise, big fan of movies, people who like the Scream movies. Omega Beta Zeta is something that is recited a lot.
Okay. Yeah. Well.
Okay.
Never noticed.
That's why when I said.
And
when I sent you the.
If I did listen to it, I'd be like, they're really obsessed with her. Yeah.
So I shouldn't change my greeting on my phone. Okay. I shouldn't answer the phone that way. Okay. That's fine.
You can do that when I call you.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Omega Beta Zeta. No, I'm just kidding. So the sequence with Cece Cooper, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar. How do you feel about the sequence, Lauren?
I liked it. It's hard. This is going to sound so bad, but it's hard for me to picture her as anyone other than Buffy. When I was watching the scene, I'm like, oh, Buffy's making a phone call. I can't think of her as anyone else. It's so bad.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I mean, I am a huge Sarah Michelle Gellar fan, and this was during peak popularity. She had just done. I'm sorry, my brain's not working. She had just done the first season of Buffy, so this was either right before or during her filming season 2 of Buffy. I Know What You Did Last Summer had just come out as well. So she was a name at the time, and people loved her. Obviously, she was on a soap opera in her early teens.
Seriously?
So people knew who.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I forget which one it was. Maybe General. Oh no, I think it was All My Children. I actually think she won an Emmy for it.
Yeah, I didn't watch All My Children. I was more of a Days of Our Lives girl.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Well, people who watch these things and know this about Sarah off the top of their head, I apologize if I got the information wrong. But she was on a popular daytime soap opera, and her character is pretty popular, I guess. So, and then obviously Buffy, as you mentioned. I mean, what an iconic role. But Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson were like, why not have Sarah Michelle Gellar do this? Because it's a little bit different. She is actually the one being stalked this time, where Buffy's, the one always going out after the people, after the vampires. And she's very strong-willed. And here she kind of starts off that way, but of course she becomes a victim. Super sad. Kevin Williamson also wrote the script, so I know he did last summer. And Sarah Michelle Gellar also dies on that film. So I think Kevin Williamson has something against Sarah.
I've never seen I Know You Did Last Summer, so...
Oh, well, this is a problem.
Are you freaking surprised at this point?
No. I'm just going to assume you haven't seen a movie. Well, spoiler alert, she dies. Sorry. So, one other fun little thing about the scene with Sarah Michelle Gellar is we always talk about connections. And when the scene first starts, she's talking on the phone to her friend, played by Selma Blair, as I mentioned. And they're talking about Sarah and Bailey, which is reference to Party of Five, which was extremely popular on television at the time, which main character was Neve Campbell. And they were making these references just to kind of poke fun at the fact that Neve Campbell was on a really popular TV show at the time, and Sarah had just done that movie with Jennifer Love Hewitt, who plays Sarah on the show. And also on the television, while she's going through the TV channels, she ends up stopping on Nosferatu, the original Nosferatu film.
Shut up.
Which is a vampire movie, and she is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So obviously Nosferatu, it's the scene where, in the original film, where Nosferatu is hovering over the female lead, and also the scene going up the steps, which CC Cooper ends up doing. She ends up going up the steps, but instead of her being the one casting the shadow, Ghostface is coming after her up the stairs. I think the sequence is brilliant. I think it is a really good chase scene. I think there's a lot of tension here, and I think it's definitely a very memorable moment throughout the entire franchise. Like I definitely think you could put this at least in the top 10 moments in all of the films. Again, in my opinion. But she also, when she's running from Ghostface in the house, she's throwing things at him, like she grabs a flower pot, throws it at him. There's a bike at the top of one of the stairs. She tosses that at him as well. A lot of people make fun of that, and it also got made fun of hardcore in Scary Movie. I think it's great, because if you, in real life, were running from someone who was chasing you, wouldn't you want to grab anything that was available?
Anything you possibly can. Yeah.
Yeah, so to me, that makes it more realistic. And also, with that being said, in the scene at Delta Lambda Zeta, whenever Ghostface is attacking Sydney when she's by herself, Ghostface goes running and jumps across the couch, and he trips over the couch and falls. Mm-hmm. A lot of people make fun of that too, but this is a human behind a mask. This isn't some supernatural Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees type of thing.
He's not going to be like Tom Cruise doing his own, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, well, there's the big twist for Scream 7, guys. Tom Cruise is the killer.
Tom Cruise.
Dave. Ghostface, number 7.
Dave, I'm going to go pee.
Yep. Oh. Fun little fact about CC Cooper as well is Reese Witherspoon and Alicia Silverstone were considered to be this part until they ultimately decided on Sarah Michelle Gellar. That doesn't mean that either one of them auditioned or they were into it like that. Mm-hmm. But trying to picture the scene with Reese and Alicia, and I don't know, it just doesn't work. I think there's a lot of meta to having Sarah that way, like you said, especially with Buffy being so iconic and such a fighter and not a victim.
I'm waiting for Alicia Silverstone to make her comeback.
So she's been doing a lot of independent films, not so much not a lot of mainstream stuff. Yeah, I think she's done some offbeat romantic comedies and stuff like that. I'll send you over a few.
Tell me because I want to watch them. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'll send you a few recommendations.
Perfect.
Yeah. So Sarah Michelle Gellar was the only one who did not avoid Roger L. Jackson, who plays Ghostface. So in the first film, when Roger L. Jackson, he would be on set, he would not let anyone see him, what he looks like. He wanted to kind of remain ominous. In Scream 2, everyone just kind of avoided him because, they wanted to keep that ominous thing going. They also scary man doing scary voice, trying to kill everyone. But Sarah Michelle Gellar was the one person who would always go talk to him during her filming days and troll him and tease him for being such a scary voice and things like that. But in true Buffy fashion, she just kept
that, because in my head, Any movie I watch or any TV show I watch, I want them to all like love each other and be best friends in real life. So,
yeah. Well, so another little fun fact is Sarah Michelle Gellar and Jerry O'Connell started dating on the set of this film.
Pre-Freddie Prinze Jr.
Pre-Freddie, yeah. So Sarah had already met Freddie on I Know You Did Last Summer, but they didn't start dating yet. So I do think that Freddie was right after Jerry O'Connell.
Gotcha.
So,
wow.
Yeah. The more you know, guys. The more you know.
The important facts over here.
The important facts, for sure. Yeah, but obviously there was a lot of love in the air because, of course, this is when Courtney Cox and David Arquette started dating. They obviously got married. Of course, their marriage didn't last longer than, I think, 12 years or something like that. It went on for quite a while and whatever, didn't work out, but it's nice to see that this movie kind of started their dating and which eventually leads to their marriage. And David Arquette's dad is actually in this film. Did you know that?
I did not know.
He is the police chief.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, so that ended up being Courtney Cox's father-in-law there for a while. So
were they dating on this, or were they already married?
They started dating. So in Scream, that's when they first met, of course. By Scream 2, they were dating. By Scream 3, they were married.
Gotcha.
And Scream 4, I think they were probably still together or really close to the end of their relationship, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess Scream kind of tells their timeline here. We won't talk about what happens in Scream 5. We'll talk about that whenever we get to it.
I'm good.
Dewey does have his own little score in this film. It's actually from Hans Zimmer. He used some of the movie Broken Arrow that came out in 1996. He uses a little bit of the music from that film. He incorporates it into the score of this film, which is done by Marco Beltrami. I think the score of this movie is really good. I think, Sydney has her own theme. Dewey has his own theme. But that Dewey theme incorporates parts from Broken Arrow, and it's kind of like a cowboy, like a Western, whatever, a Western sound, I guess. Mm-hmm. And that goes on through the entire franchise. So I think that's pretty cool that that's part of that. And, all right. Is there anything you want to talk about outside of these conversations before we get into the conversation about the killers?
I just want to bring up that I get that Cotton kind of redeemed himself at the end, but the way he acted towards Sydney in the library, I wanted to fucking knee him in the balls.
Yeah, little ball near. Tell us a little bit about this library scene. What makes it so cringy?
It makes it cringy because he's not he's pulling her she's not acting of her own free will. He is pulling her into the hallway. He's cornering her. He's making her feel unsafe. And I don't like how he has this redemption at the end, because if you're treating someone like that, it's not okay. And I didn't realize he would be so fame hungry as to act like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. He definitely gets a little intense in there. I think that scene in the library, so Sydney receives an instant message on the library computer. Obviously, very old school instant messaging, but it had to be from someone on the same exact network. But it says that you're going to die tonight, Sydney. And the two detectives that are watching over her, of course, are investigating everyone's computers in there. They kind of put her off to the side, and then Cotton shows up and pulls her into the side hallway away from everyone. And he kind of confronts her you need to do an interview with Diane Sawyer with me. You're going to get some money. I'm going to get some money. Do this. And Sydney's like, I don't want all this press. I don't want people coming. This is my life. I don't want to talk about it. I want all of this stuff to end. I can just move on and be happy. And like you said, he's very fame hungry. He thinks not only does Sydney owe him something, but the world owes him something. And Gail's giving him that by making him popular from the book and in the stab films, but he's not getting it in real life, and that's all he wants. This scene is kind of like a red herring scene because it does a quick view of his boots, which looks similar to the boots that we see in the bathroom scene in the original Scream film. Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of a way for us to be like, oh shit, could Cotton Weary be the killer? The marketing of this film does an excellent job of the original trailer for the film shows a glimpse of when Dewey and Randy are talking about the rules of a horror sequel. They talk about all the possible suspects in the film, who the killer could be, and they do a real quick shot of literally every single person in the film. Like, it's a really quick cut in the trailers for this, but I think that's really cool. And I think one of the things I like about Scream 2 a lot is they do a really good job of making you really guess who the killer might be. There's a lot of like, here's a sign here, here's a sign there, this is a fake out sign, this is a real sign. And mm-hmm. I feel like every time I watch it, you kind of just pick up a little bit here and there. Kind of like, oh, I don't know how I missed that. But I think, especially with the first two Scream films, I think they do a great job with that. And what makes Scream 2 so good at it compared to Scream 1 is that there's a lot more characters. Because there's even a time where we possibly think, or we're shown to think, that Rebecca Gayheart or Portia de Rossi could be a part of it because they're in the scene in the theater when Sydney is doing one of her scenes and she thinks that Ghostface is there.
By the way, to be thrown in that scene, experiencing what she's experienced, no wonder she had like a panic attack, sure. You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And I think that's what this movie does a really good job at. And of course, whenever we do find out who the killers are, we might be shocked, we might not be, but they do a really good job of making certain people think that certain people are the killers and not. So with that being said, Lauren, did you feel when you first watched Scream 2, did you guess who the killer or killers were?
I had inklings, but I don't think Mickey was creepy to me, and I felt like he could be one of the killers. And then I suspected a few people, but to me, Laurie Metcalf being in this movie and her only having those little scenes that she did, I'm like, she's got to be a bigger part of this. Yeah.
So you kind of made a connection to like a bigger name being a part of something, yes. Possibly being okay.
And I didn't know, obviously, that she would be Billy's mother, but I was like, there's no way that Laurie Metcalf has these like 3 small scenes and that's it. You know, like she has to be a part of this somehow.
Yeah, this was the role that Laurie Metcalf took on immediately after Roseanne stopped filming.
Yeah.
Like once it was over. Mm-hmm. So, so she was a pretty big name at the time. I was familiar with her because my mom loved Roseanne when I was growing up, and we always loved Aunt Jackie.
Yeah.
So, I didn't make the connection. I mean, I don't really remember the first time I watched Scream 2, like what my reaction was to things like that. But I do remember when Scream 2 came out to VHS. So probably would have been that summer of 98. I remember going to rent it because I watched movies 9,000 times. So I picked up the VHS tape. Obviously, I had already seen it, but I put it into the VCR. And you know how they're always like, be kind, rewind. Mm-hmm. Well, someone did not rewind, and I think they purposely did it because when you put the VHS in and hit play, and I vividly remember this, I hit play, and it's right when you see Debbie Salt at the end, and it immediately cuts to Mickey when he goes, Billy's mother. And I was like, wow, that's really a low blow.
Crazy though. I thought it was someone's job at the video store to rewind the movies if someone hadn't rewinded them. Rewound. Not rewinded.
Yeah, that's okay. Guys, we are all about new words here. But no, yeah, they did not rewounded it. I mean, I would think maybe at a place like Blockbuster or something. I will be honest and say that I got it from a local gas station that had a little video store in it. So maybe people weren't. Yeah, real fancy guys.
Very fancy.
You know. Yeah, this is when you can rent movies pretty much from anywhere. But I just thought that's a really low blow. Like if someone had just popped in the movie.
That's
and
so mean.
Yeah. But it is what it is, and I was just like, oh, shit, well, here's the ending.
Well, I always rewound my movies.
Yeah, you rewound it.
I rewinded my movies.
Rewinded it. Good, I'm glad you rewinded it.
Yes.
I do also want to talk about one other scene before we jump into that finale, the car scene. So the car scene, I think, is another really great sequence in this film. There's a lot of suspense behind it. And what did you think of that? What did you think of that scene the first time you saw it?
Was Ghostface playing dead? I don't know. How did they sneak over his or her body out of the window? Didn't move at all, and then they're out of the car for 2 seconds. She comes back. And he's gone. He or she is gone.
Mm-hmm. I will say that that's probably, if we want to nitpick, I do feel like that's something we could definitely nitpick is the timing in between.
Count on me to nitpick.
Yeah, I think obviously nitpicking is fine. And I will say it's definitely noticeable. From the time they both got out of the car, we were talking about Sydney and Hallie. Mm-hmm. Once they both finally get out of the wrecked car, where Ghostface is unconscious, which I do think he was. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
So when Mickey in the next scene, when Mickey reveals himself as the killer, he has a huge bruise and bloody wound on the corner of his head.
It's him.
Yes. Yeah. There's a big debate on if Debbie Salt did any of the murders other than Randy, but she does admit that she's the one that killed Randy.
Okay.
So
I thought the bodyguards, whatever they are, that was pretty gruesome, with the face,
sure.
Yeah,
so when the car pulls up to the red light, they're taking Sydney, and Hallie's allowed to come with her. They're taking her to a safe house, and on their trip, they stop at a red light, and Ghostface appears next to the car, and slices the throat of the officer that's driving the car. As the passenger officer jumps out, he jumps in front of the car. Ghostface drives the car with him on the hood of the car, which ultimately wrecks into a construction site. And when Ghostface wrecks the car, there's a huge pipe that goes through the head and the face of the cop that's hanging on the front of the car. So that is pretty gruesome. Fun fact, the dummy prop that was used in that scene, the piping was supposed to go through his chest, but the dummy moved when it was happening and it ended up going through his face. And Wes Craven thought it was a lot more gruesome and was like, hell yeah, let's keep it that way.
Well, Wes, I don't know what to say to you right now.
I think it looks fantastic.
I bet you do.
I do. I mean, but also, Lauren, what's really funny is that this movie, especially Scream and Scream 2, were considered to be extremely violent and gory. Isn't that wild?
Which is crazy, because even I can say at this point in my life that I don't feel that way, Yeah. Just the sheer amount of violence and gore in our shows now, this seems like nothing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've freaking watched Game of Thrones and seen some shit.
You've seen some shit.
You've
seen
some
decapitations.
Yes, and Hereditary.
And Terrifier.
Oh, God. When I think about what I've watched now compared to this movie, I'm like, how far I've come.
Yes, yeah. And how wild to think that these films are considered so violent, because they're really not. Even the murder scenes aren't overly grotesque. I think that car scene might be the most gruesome, to be honest. I mean, Sarah gets stabbed a couple times in the back, short, scary, thrown off the balcony. See some blood from her, but camera angles from far away.
I will actually argue that the garage door scene in the first one is more gruesome than anything in this movie.
Sure. Wes Craven actually made a few cuts of the film. He made longer sequences of blood, that he didn't intend to use, so he could show the MPAA a way more violent version that he never intended on actually using. So the MPAA would give him, say, hey, you have to cut some of these scenes out, so then he would, and then he would have the vision that he wanted. But when he submitted it, the MPAA said, no, it's fine, rated R. And he was like, wait, that wasn't how it was supposed to happen. So he ended up trimming some of that stuff, and like Randy's death was supposed to be a little bit more gruesome and stuff, but I think the film does pretty effective with the quote unquote gore that we get and everything. So
sorry, my microphone's being weird.
Playing games with you.
Quit playing games with my heart. Quit playing games with my heart. Can you hear me?
Music hour. I can. You're good. You're safe.
Oh, I was singing the whole time.
Oh yeah, we all heard you.
I'm fine with that. Okay. All right, I'm good.
So Randy talks about the rules of a sequel. He says, the way I see it, someone's out to make a sequel. Cash in on all the movie murder hoopla. So it's our job to identify the rules of a sequel. Number 1, the body count is always bigger. Fair. There's a couple more deaths in this one. Yeah. There's in Scream. Number 2, the death scenes are always much more elaborate. I agree, because we have like longer chase sequences, some extra stabbings here and there, and obviously with a couple more victims, they are a little bit more elaborate. And then he says carnage candy, which I do feel like the film, if we're talking about carnage candy, definitely could have been a lot more gruesome.
Why would you call it that?
Carnage candy.
Candy, like, you horror fans, I can't with you guys.
Hey, you're among the elite now. And then he gets cut off when he starts doing the rule of number 3, and he says something along the lines of about becoming a franchise. Mm-hmm. So in the trailer, they use a number 3, and the number 3 is never, ever, under any circumstance, assume the killer is dead. So obviously that was thrown in just for marketing purposes. But the reason he doesn't do number 3, Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven said they wanted Dewey to cut that off, because there's never ever really a guarantee that you're going to have a franchise. There's never really a reason why, other than studio being like, hell yeah, let's do another film. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to kind of cut off that way. So it's kind of meta in that capacity. So knowledgeable.
So meta.
So meta. All right, Lauren, let's talk about this finale.
Okay. Yep, I'm ready.
What has a better finale, Scream or Scream 2? As a whole, I'm not just talking.
But with all of these questions, as a whole,
didn't prepare you.
Scream. Scream.
I will say that one thing I like a little bit more about Scream 2 is like the set pieces. How we have like this big theater and we're kind of moving around that. Whereas the original Scream, we're kind of just stuck in Stu's house. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, a lot of the time in the kitchen. But yeah, I agree with you. I think for Scream, obviously for obvious reasons, I do think that. I think the killer reveal is a little less obvious in this one than in Scream, but I don't think that's a negative thing per se. I think the first Scream, they were so kind of like in your face with like, these are the killers, but everyone just ignored it.
Well, and I also think this one, I hate to say this, is a little more far-fetched.
Okay.
Like Mickey specifically.
Okay.
Like, it's weird.
So Mickey's reason for being a killer is that he wanted his motive to be that the movies made him crazy.
Right. Like
what? So it's a play on a lot of things that were happening in media at the time, where people wanted to make movies less violent because they were blaming cinema on things that were happening, and they kind of talk about that in the film sequence at the beginning, in the film class at the beginning of the film. People don't agree with it. So he wanted to play the angle of, yeah, these movies make me more creative. And they kind of talk about it in the first Scream too. But Mickey's using that as his actual motive, and he wants to get caught. Like the O.J. Simpson trial was happening at the time, so it was really popular. So he was like, I basically want to be like O.J. Put me on trial. I want to get caught. I want to kind of become this weird celebrity type thing.
That's just so bizarre to me that it just doesn't make, it doesn't make sense to me. but that's just me.
That's okay. I mean, a lot of people think his motive is stupid, so you're not alone on that. But it makes him. I think he is a weak character, but I think it's intentional. And we know that Debbie Salt is the mastermind behind it all. Real name Nancy Loomis, which is obviously Billy's mother. She's doing it out of revenge, just pure revenge. She says she doesn't have a psychotic bone in her body, but her son was murdered by Sydney, so now she's attacking everyone. So there's a part in the movie where Gail makes the connection that there's a copycat killer. This part of the story kind of gets thrown to the side, and it's never really talked of again. Did you notice that?
No.
That's okay. So that's something. That's some people's like really big complaints, because I think people got excited about that when Gail was like, "Oh, so we have a copycat killer on our hands because he killed Maureen Evans, Phil Stevens, and Cece Cooper, whose real name's Casey."
Yes, no, I get it. Yeah, they just kind of dropped it after that. Yeah.
Yep. So my argument with that is, I think that's what Debbie Salt's intentions were. But the next victim is Randy. And the only reason she kills Randy, she didn't even want to kill Randy. The reason she killed Randy is because while on the phone with him, Randy mentions that Billy was a homo-repressed mama's boy. And she didn't like the way that he was talking about her son. Mm-hmm. So that's why, in a fit of rage, she got knife happy and slit his throat and stabbed him multiple times in that van. So that's why a lot of people believe that Debbie didn't kill a lot of people. She used Mickey to do all the killings. She essentially did like the phone calls, like the taunting. So her original plan was to recreate Woodsboro, ultimately to get to Sydney. But then Randy changed the whole plan, and then she had to finish it now that she like killed her best friend. Mm-hmm. So, but I think it would have been fun if they would have kept up with that. But I kind of can make a reason why they didn't, and I think it still kind of works, whether that was intentional or not. Mm-hmm. So Debbie's reasoning is just literally she wants to seek revenge on the death of her son. Sydney obviously killed him, and she just wants to make sure that she takes off everyone around her that means something to her, because that's what she did to her.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good motive. I mean, obviously it's very, it's kind of cliched in a way, but I mean, it's realistic. Mother instincts, wanting to attack and all that stuff. So I think it works. There's a little cop out where Mickey says he has a partner working with him before we find out about Debbie, and out walks Gail. And for a millisecond, some people are like, whoa.
Yeah, everyone thinks it's,
So I think it's pretty cool. And then, of course, there's the scene with Cotton when you're not sure if, Cotton arrives during this climax scene. He has a gun in his hand, and Debbie's trying to tell him, you should shoot her. She wrongfully accused you. And then...
Which, like, didn't he say something like, something about Diane Sawyer? Because, like, Sydney was like, you just want to be famous, blah, blah, blah. I won't go on Diane Sawyer with you. But when she agrees, when she's like, I'll go on Diane Sawyer with you, and then he kills her... Like, what if she wouldn't have said that?
I mean, that's a good question. But I think that she knew him well enough to know that if she... I mean, I don't really think that Cotton would have killed Sydney, but I do think that her saying that, he was kind of like, okay, cool. And then, of course, with Sydney at the end, after all this is over, she doesn't want that fame, so she tells the news reporters, like, go pay attention to him. He's the one you want. He's the hero here. So I think she just knows he wants this, so she's kind of like, okay, like, we're here in this moment. Sure, I'll do the interview with you. Just fucking end this shit already.
He wouldn't have said that. What would he have done?
I still feel like he would have shot Debbie.
You think so?
But I think he would have just. I think he
would have hesitated a little bit longer.
I think his hesitation would have been a little bit longer for sure. Which brings us to the original ending of the film.
What are you talking about?
So there's an original ending to the film. It was never filmed. So there's no like footage or anything of it. Mm-hmm. So there's two stories here. One story is that the script leaked while they were filming. Therefore, while they were filming, they had to constantly rewrite things. Okay. There's another rumor or another story, another angle. Years later, Kevin Williamson said that was a lie, that he made a dummy script that he leaked out online for people to fall for. So that's what Kevin said, so we can assume that that's probably what actually happened. However, people were like, he just said that, like, because the script that leaked, the ending wasn't fully finished and kind of just ends and says, like, blah, 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 there'll be more, essentially. And a lot of people criticize how bad the writing was for the finale in the leaked script. So some people say that he just made that up because he didn't want to take credit for the script not being that good. But I found this. I want to read it to you really fast just to kind of paint a little picture for you.
Okay.
This will explain it a little bit better. So this was what the leak was. I actually have this script. I can send it to you if you want to read it.
Of course you do.
After the first draft of the script was leaked, several changes had to be made and characters were fully rewritten. Dewey had originally transferred himself from Woodsboro Police to the security staff on campus so he could be close to Sydney and keep her safe. Randy was originally Gail's new cameraman, and Joel was a med student and friends with Sydney. Derek was the film student shooting a documentary who walked around with a camera, not Mickey. Debbie Salt was more aggressive and bitchy, as in one scene she asked Sydney if she finally snapped and if she's the one doing all the killings, being punched in the face by Gail as a result. The scene in which Sydney slaps Gail never happened in the original script. Mickey is the one who sings in the cafeteria to Hallie, not Derek singing to Sydney. And it was a different song. It was I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston. And the killer reveal was Derek and Hallie were the original killers.
Oh.
But then gets stabbed by Cotton before she can shoot Sydney and Gail. Cotton suddenly has a change of heart and decides to get even with both Sydney and Gail as he considers them responsible for ruining his life. He stabs Gail and then runs after Sydney, and Debbie Salt was discovered to be the mastermind of it all. So Debbie was using Derek and Hallie to commit the murders, but then Cotton snaps, and then eventually he attacks Sydney, and they both fall off the balcony in the theater, and we don't know which one's dead or alive, and that's how the film ends.
Okay, so that would be way more compelling.
Oh, no. Well, I'll send you the script, and you let me know what you think. Definitely, I'll send you the last couple pages so you can see it. But
a little cliffhanger.
Yeah, it's a little messy, but I feel like I feel like Kevin Williamson has tried to make this cliffhanger ending happen, and now he, for the second time ever, is a director of a theatrical film. First one being Teaching Mrs. Tingle, but he is actually the director of Scream 7, so he gets to bring his vision. So I do think in some weird way, I think an ending like that or some of these things that he's come up with for Scream over time will come to play in Scream 7.
Okay, well,
so
are we gonna watch it together?
Absolutely.
Yes. I haven't seen your face in a year.
Well, this doesn't come out until February of next year, so hopefully I see you before then.
Yes, hopefully. Yep.
Cool. I mean, that's pretty much Scream 2 in a nutshell. There are tons of things I could talk about Scream 2. I'm sure there are people listening right now that are fans of Scream 2 saying, Dave, but what about this? And I guess you're going to talk about all the iconic lines of the film, but I don't want to overstay my welcome. So do you have any final thoughts? Has your ratings for the film changed?
No.
Couldn't win you over on that.
Well, maybe it's a 4.15 now.
7.5. Oh, we're at 1.5. Okay.
4.15.
Wait, were you at 4.25? Did you fall back a little
bit? Now that I know this alternate ending, Dave.
Oh man, I should have never told you the alternate ending. Oh shit. Yeah. So that's Scream 2. Moderately, wildly successful follow up to the original Scream, and of course, in a couple years later, we'll get Scream 3. 11 years later, we'll get Scream 4, and then we'll get a reboot of the franchise and all that fun stuff. So, still lots to talk about. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Do you have anything else?
That's it.
That's it. All right. Well, hey, thanks for chatting with me and coming back to do another Scream film for the first episode of season 2.
So exciting.
Yeah, I had a good time talking with you about Scream 2.
Me too.
And we'll obviously do Scream 3 down the road here. So, but yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Everyone, thanks for listening. Lauren, thanks for joining me again. I'm sure I will have you back very soon for some fun movie conversations and
fun singing movies.
Fun singing movies. God damn it. All right. More things to look forward to, guys.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, have a great night, everyone. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. And I will talk to you soon. See ya.
Bye.